Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us at Career Expo. My name is Heather Ricciuto, and I will be your moderator for the next hour as we discuss cybersecurity pathways for post-secondary students and early professionals. With me, I have Diana, Emily, and Rachel, and I'd like to ask each of them to introduce themselves. Diana, let's start with you.
Sure, thanks, Heather. Thanks everyone for joining us today. As Heather mentioned, my name is Diana and I am a campus talent acquisition lead at IBM. So what that means is I oversee our internship and co-op program. So if you are a student interested in looking for an internship opportunity, I would be your best point of contact.
Thanks, Diana. Emily?
Hey everybody, as Heather said, my name is Emily. I currently work in the cybersecurity division of IBM as a Scrum lead, which means I oversee projects and management and all of that stuff to put projects into practice.
Thank you. And Rachel?
So I'm Rachel. I work in the same division of cybersecurity at IBM as Emily does. I work in quality assurance, so I test the software that the developers create.
Thank you. All right. So as you heard, three different roles, but we're, and put myself in the mix makes four, but we all are here today for the same purpose, and that's to help the audience understand how they might pursue studies and careers in cybersecurity. As academic and talent outreach program manager for IBM Security, I am often asked what skills are needed to get into cybersecurity and what education I should take in order to get into cybersecurity. So Emily, you've had quite the path into cybersecurity. So I wanted to start with you and ask you, has your career gone in directions that you never imagined when you were, starting your post-secondary career?
Absolutely. So as you know, Heather, but for my audience, I started out thinking I was going to be a K-12 elementary school teacher, and found out when I started to pursue secondary education, post-secondary, I had to take a degree first. So I signed up for computer science, Bachelor of Information Systems with University of New Brunswick, and I did that. And throughout that, I got the opportunity to do co-op programs. I still wanted to pursue education, but I had a real interest in the technical side of things after that program. So I did my education degree. I worked in e-learning for a year. And then I got reached out to by somebody I had networked by as a co-op student, and they convinced me to switch into technology, and I loved it. And I was working, as Rachel is right now, as a quality assurance or software tester. And I loved it, and I started to realize that I did a lot of cybersecurity things as a tester. I'm making sure we're not open to threat. So from there, I actually moved to the IBM cybersecurity division as a software tester, and then ended up taking on a Scrum manager role for my team. Kind of coincide, we need somebody to wear this hat and that hat, so I was doing both. And recently that has transitioned to the Scrum lead, so I'm actually no longer a software tester. I kind of miss it, but not too much. And I'm really loving my new role as the Scrum lead. So for 8 different teams, I think now.
Thank you, Emily. Diana, I imagine, you do a lot of campus recruiting, which of course all is virtual right now, but I imagine you are often asked that same question that I mentioned earlier or a version thereof, right? What skills do I need? What courses should I take? What degrees do you look for? So what advice do you give students?
Yeah, and those are really great questions for students to ask if you're interested in a particular industry or a field. But as you can see from Emily's experience, you don't necessarily go into a certain field, and that might not be the area you end up graduating in or even getting a full-time role in. So I wouldn't say there's one particular program you should focus on or a course that you can tick off and say, okay, this is exactly what I can get, and that will lead me into a job in cybersecurity. But think about the passion and the interests that you have. And if that is cybersecurity, that is probably the area you should explore and go into. And from IBM, I'll give you an example of how you can explore that. If you've never heard, write it down, skillsbuild.org. Skillsbuild.org. Okay. This is a website where we have more than 7,000 free online courses. And these are technical courses, non-technical courses, and there are courses in cybersecurity. So you can take a look and see, maybe that's something you try and you absolutely love it. Or you try some other type, IT, or maybe it's cloud, and then you absolutely love that. So I would recommend you to really test out what you would be interested in instead of thinking this is exactly what I want to do, because not always it'll turn out to what you think it could be. So as Emily said, she wanted to go into education and then she completely switched her career. So don't think about one direct pathway, but try and think what you're most interested in and passionate about.
That's really great advice, Diana. And actually, I want to stick with you for a minute and ask you a follow-on question. What about what I call foundational skills? What advice do you have for students to focus on skills like communications and collaborations and even following their passions too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, teamwork, I think you're going to notice while you're in school, that's one of the probably biggest things you'll get to experience is you're going to be put into a group of random people that they may not be your friend or you've never met them until you started that course. And that's just the reality of how careers are. And that's how life is. You don't get to pick your coworkers. So being able to be flexible, adaptable, and agile into whatever you're put with in terms of projects or people that you work with. So those are kind of foundational skills that definitely would be helpful for you to try to improve on while you're in school, whether that be through classes or being part of different student clubs and getting that leadership experience or communication experience. But I would say that, again, going back to Skills Build, you will see non-technical courses in there that talk about design thinking, agile methodologies, and collaboration, communication, teamwork. So these are all very great skills that you can showcase within your resume. And it doesn't have to be a work experience, but it could be through school projects or personal projects or anything outside of your day-to-day school. So hackathons, these are all really great to have to build those foundational skills.
Thanks, Diana. I'm going to come back to hackathons and competitions in a little bit, but I want to move on over to Rachel. So Rachel, you joined IBM fairly recently, and so you're a recent graduate. And I know that, well, I'd like to ask you about your educational background, and then I'd like to get into a bit of a discussion about internships as well, because I know that you first worked as an intern for IBM before coming to work for us full-time or permanently upon graduation. So can you talk first about your educational background?
Sure, yeah. So I initially graduated high school and went into university in a Bachelor of Science degree, majoring in biochemistry. I did 2 years of that, but I went into that degree because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and my mom wanted me to work in medicine, so I went into science, but I ended up really not liking it. And I had a sort of passion for video games and like modding video games and stuff. So that got me interested in coding. And so I ended up switching my degree halfway through to computer science, and I finished my degree there. And I went through the co-op program to get internships in that degree.
Very good. Thank you. And I've heard you mention a couple of times about how you started out in biochemistry because your mom wanted you to go into medicine. And I hear this a lot from students, when I run our Cyber Day for Girls program and I ask young girls in middle school or high school what they want to be when they grow up, they give answers like teacher, lawyer, doctor, just as, I and my peers did well, actually, I'm an exception, but that's a whole other story. I might share it later. But typically kids give answers like that because those are our societal role models, right? And I love what we're doing here today, and I thank you for that, because we need to get stories out there about careers in cybersecurity, and really makes the cybersecurity professional a societal role model in order to inspire others to pursue studies and careers in cybersecurity. So if I stick with you again for a moment, Rachel, tell us a little bit more about your co-op experience and how that really affected your career choice, and maybe even how that affected the employer that you chose.
So at the co-op program, you get to sort of interview with a lot of different companies. And so I interviewed with IBM was one of them, and there were many others. But I ended up choosing IBM because I wanted the opportunity to work for IBM. The role was quality assurance, which I wasn't sure about, but I ended up loving the job. And so I actually did all of my co-ops with IBM. And then when I graduated, I was hired on full-time in quality assurance. I do know people who have done all 4 of their co-ops in different companies with different roles. So you could either build a relationship with one company, or you could try out all different things and figure out what you like.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that a little earlier today, didn't we, Emily, about trying different things, using internships or co-op opportunities as an opportunity to try different things, right? You have anything to add, because you had quite an experience working in different internships as well.
Yeah, so I graduated from the same university as Rachel, so I did the same co-op program. I did 6 terms, which is the absolute max you're allowed to do. And I did one of them for the government of New Brunswick. I did one of them as a requirements analyst for Research in Motion, which is now BlackBerry. I did my second term there as a software tester when it turned to BlackBerry. So in the summer that I was back in school, they actually changed their name to BlackBerry, so I worked for both. And then I got an opportunity to work for Lockheed Martin. And then I went out west for my last 2, and I worked in a coal mine in British Columbia. So I was working on their machinery Dynamics AX stuff, which was really fun because we were actually in the coal mines. And when you see a truck that's bigger than a house driving at you, it kind of brings it home that computers are huge. So yeah, no, and I tried out so many different roles, support, development, and all of that stuff, and it really helped me find what I wanted. But on the flip side, where Rachel did all 4 of hers at IBM, she built a huge relationship, and it's like, I don't regret not doing them all at the same, but at the same time, it's like when I went to leave university and get a job, I was like, man, I wish I had worked at the same company, because then everybody would know me. So.
But, I think there are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches, right? Because I know that I've heard you say that the approach you took, it helps you not only figure out what you did want to do, but what you didn't want to do, right?
Absolutely. I am not a developer. I did a full 4-month program as a developer. I was okay at it. Like I could do the work, and I love my coworkers and things. I am just not a developer. And when my co-op coordinator came in, she's like, how you doing? I'm hearing nothing but good things. This is going to be great. And I looked at her and I said, I'm never doing this again. So
but
yeah,
that's okay,
no.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's okay, because you want, no matter what, in the long run, you want to end up doing something that you love, right? You want to work to live, not live to work. So
exactly. And I will say with that, even though I didn't like it, I still gave it my everything, right? Because I would have done a disservice to myself had I not been like, I'm going to give this my everything. I'm going to give this the best chance I can. I would have been doing a big disservice to myself if I didn't.
Diana, I see a question from our audience that I'm going to direct to you. How have internships changed as a result of the pandemic? Are they all virtual and online?
Yeah, so I would say not much has changed, minus, yes, everything is virtual. So everyone will be sent their laptops to their home address, and you are required to work from home wherever you call yourself home, as long as it's within Canada. But we have continued our internship programming just the way it was while it was in person. So we have different events that we host for our interns, either that be career development or just for fun, get to know each other, social events. These were all offered virtually. So we are missing that in-person piece. And we've heard from interns that they wish they visited the office, because some of you will start and will end before the pandemic. So some have never even seen the office before or have even met their team in person before, which is too bad. But we're hoping that once things get a little bit better and we move in a positive direction, our internship experience will be just as good in person. But we've heard nothing but good feedback from our interns that even though it was virtual for the first time this past summer, they still enjoyed getting to know other interns and IBMers.
And I just want to clarify something in case we have any listeners out there who are not Canadian or eligible to work in Canada, in case you're listening in from another country, because I know we've got attendees at both Career Expo and the Canadian Women in Cybersecurity event next week from outside of Canada. Although Diana said, as long as you're in Canada, just kind of translate that to within your country, the country that you're working in, because IBM, of course, we do business in 170 countries around the world, and so you may be working as an intern or a co-op in another country with us this year. What about, Diana? What about the relationship piece? I know that we've taken great measures to partner our interns and co-ops and even our early professionals, who are just starting with us, with IBMers, match them up with mentors or just buddies, right? Buddies that they can go to with all their questions, because they can't be in an office face to face. So can you comment about that and how that's working out and making a difference?
Yeah. So for our interns within North America, you would have been added to a platform called 10,000 Coffees, and it is a Canadian startup started at the University of Waterloo. And so this platform will ask a few different questions to the interns as well as the IBMers who have volunteered to connect with interns on their interests, what kind of offerings, maybe, for example, Emily and Rachel could offer cybersecurity specific knowledge. So they can talk about that. If you have career advice, you can mention that, or maybe you have a strong passion in communications. And you can tell us what you are interested in offering, as well as just general interest, maybe food, movies, music, etc. And based on the machine learning and AI algorithm behind the scenes of 10,000 Coffees, it'll match you with someone who has similar interests and goals. And you will be introduced to this person. So an intern will be introduced to an IBMer, and there's also peer-to-peer networking. So interns could be also matched with other interns. And you're invited to go on a virtual coffee chat, get to know them. And we're hoping that it's not just, oh God, I have to have a 30-minute coffee chat with this person, but really utilizing that time to understand what other business units are out there, what other projects are out there, and potentially that could be your next internship or co-op, or that could be your next full-time opportunity within IBM. So it's a really great way for you to network. And the first time we launched it, it was last summer, and it was North America wide. So we had people in Toronto matching with people in Texas, and people in New York City matching with people in Vancouver. So it was all over the place. And we've heard that this was really, really great opportunity for interns to get to know other interns as well as full-time IBMers. And as Heather mentioned, we have a buddy program. So before you join IBM, if you have accepted your offer and before you start, you'll be matched with a buddy, someone from IBM, and they will help answer any questions you might have. And of course, once you start, we hope that you continue that relationship.
Thanks, Diana. So you mentioned the word networking. So how important do you all think networking is in your career success?
Yeah, I mean,
Build,
I can start
building your personal
over.
network. Okay, thank
Sure.
you.
So I would say it's very, very important, especially given everything is virtual. It's even more important. When I was applying for my current position at IBM, I did not know that this position was vacant until my network posted it on LinkedIn. And so I would have never come across this opportunity unless I had that person in my network. And this goes with a lot of different people that are looking for careers and just knowledge from the industry. So I always recommend students and early professionals to look out for people within the industry and connect with them and learn from them. And Emily and Rachel are obviously experts in cybersecurity that can provide advice that I wouldn't be able to because I'm not in cybersecurity myself. So instead of always thinking I have to connect with a recruiter, I urge students to look out for someone within the same industry, and you can share that passion together and learn from that person. And if they happen to hire, you probably will be on top of their mind because you connect with them, versus for a recruiter, we get thousands of requests. So it's quite difficult to have one person on top of mind.
Yeah, that's great advice, Diana. And, I would add, don't wait until you're about to graduate to start building your network. And as you build your network, don't be afraid to use your network. I'll give you an example. I met like Diana, I meet lots of students at various campus events and cybersecurity competitions and conferences. And one student comes to mind right now. He's kind of top of my mind because I met him, I think 3 years ago at a cybersecurity competition at a university. And he has been sure to stay in touch with me. He connected with me on LinkedIn at that time. And just recently he reached out and said, "Hey, Heather, I just thought I'd let you know I applied to this, to this job at IBM." And, it's always good to stay in touch with people and let them know how you're doing and see how they might be able to help you out. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help and advice and favors.
Just to add to that a little bit, Heather, my previous position from IBM was actually a direct result of my networking during co-op. So I had no idea they had a position. I had no idea that they were hiring or anything. And my manager from a previous position in co-op actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, we've got this position. You were the one that came to mind. I'm sorry it took me forever to find you, because you changed your last name," right? I got married in between. So had I been keeping up with him in between more than I had been, he probably would have found me sooner, and I may have switched positions sooner, right? So that keeping up, right? You don't think about that. I didn't think about changing my name, right? Like whatever. But those little things in networking can come back in a big way later on. And there was a difference of 5 years between when I left that company as a co-op student and when he hired me on full time.
Thanks, Emily. And Rachel, did you make a point of staying in touch with people that, as you, I know you did multiple co-op terms with us. So in between, were you sure to stay in touch with people, managers and non-managers that you had met during your co-op terms while you were, when you were back at school?
Mm-hmm. Some of my coworkers on the team that were full-time IBMers, I definitely kept in touch. Like I added them on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then also like fellow co-ops, like my best friend, I met her through my co-op actually at the same position. And even my very first co-op, the manager that I had there, he ended up leaving IBM and moving to Thailand. But I still keep in touch with him over Facebook just because we built a relationship, so you should keep those communications open.
Yeah, exactly. So there's another question I saw here. Diana, are there opportunities for students to spend a day with an expert at IBM? Do we ever do shadowing?
That's a tough one, just because of confidentiality agreements. So no, we don't have like a shadow day or anything along that nature. But I will say that on the topic of networking, as I mentioned, if you are able to find those industry professionals, they're more than happy to connect with you and give you insights into potentially some of the projects that they're working on. That are obviously not confidential, that they can share. So instead of a potential shadow day or a way to look at how someone does their day-to-day work, I would encourage you to take a look at some of the professionals and see if they could have a quick chat with you. And a really great way to look at what someone may do on a day-to-day is there's so many YouTube videos on a typical day of a software developer, or a typical day, or a day in the life of a recruiter. Just a great quick glance, and usually these are pretty short videos for you to take a look and see what that day may look like. And obviously there's no typical day really, and there is no same day for everybody since everyone has different things going on, different projects, but we don't have shadow days, and I would rather recommend you to connect with industry professionals.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask them to be your mentor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a little more, a little deeper relationship than just a networking relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, Diana, to someone who believes that in order to work in cybersecurity, you must have a computer science degree and or be a programmer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we will debunk the myth that you need a computer science or a XYZ degree in order to get a certain job. And that is because we're not looking at your degree to determine if you're going to be the right fit for the role. Instead, we're looking at skill sets. What kind of skills and knowledge do you have? And there's multiple different examples of people, especially in IBM, where they don't have a computer science degree, but they're a developer right now. Or we've had people who have gone into completely different background, for example, like a non-technical business or a psychology background, but they're now currently working in cybersecurity. So there's multiple different avenues, but if you are interested in cybersecurity, you need to find out what job exactly. Is it a developer role or is it a QA role? And if that is the case, take a look at the job description and see what are those skills that we're looking for, and really focus on those skills versus saying, I need to go into software engineering because I want to go into cybersecurity. There's multiple different positions that will allow you to work in cybersecurity, but you do not have to have a computer science degree or background in that area.
Thanks, Diana. Great advice. What other kind of jobs, besides being a developer or, a QA lead, a Scrum lead, what other sorts of jobs are there in cybersecurity that we would hire for?
Yeah, recently we've hired consultants in cybersecurity, so it's more client facing, but being able to present in front of our clients on some of our products and potentially what that could translate into by them incorporating into their business. So that another example of, yes, it would be great if you have those technical skills and those knowledge as foundation, but it doesn't mean that you need a computer science degree to have knowledge in that. And we're not looking for someone to be able to code, but we're looking for someone who can be a consultant, be able to connect with people and be able to present on ideas and coming up with solutions. So there's definitely multiple different avenues, again, you can look into within cybersecurity. So if you're not in a technical program or a current technical job, that's okay. But I will say that every job description is very, very lengthy. That's because we try to tell you as much as we can about the exact position. So read through the job description and really try to understand if you have the necessary skill sets that would align to that particular role.
And I'll just add to that, don't think that you have to meet every single requirement that's on the that's on the posting. I always encourage people to apply to anything that they're interested in, because you never know what might happen. And even, even if you make it to an interview, the interview process itself is a learning experience, even if in the long run you don't get that exact job. And there are always many ways to translate the skills and experience that you do have to suit the role that you're applying for. Rachel, I wanted to come back to you and ask you, besides the degree that you took and the co-op experiences that you had, was there anything else that you got involved in, maybe extracurricular sort of activities that helped you develop skills outside of the classroom that may have, that were important to you to include on your resume and help you get employment in the long run?
So actually, the high school I graduated from didn't have any sort of tech programs or anything like that. It was a small high school. And then so basically from university, when I switched degrees, was when I started building my tech knowledge, basically. And even then, there weren't a lot of things I participated in because I was so focused on graduating, but I did enter into programming competitions. And I also did some fundraising activities, which actually Emily's also involved in, but they're video gaming marathons, but it was all hosted by the university and at the university. And that was also, it was all computer science kids, so it was a networking opportunity as well. So just anything you can get involved in at school is really important. But even if you don't get all of that stuff, it's okay. My first interview with IBM for my first co-op, my only experience on my resume was my Tim Hortons job. So, but they still interviewed me, and my interview went really well. And I think that's why they ended up picking me.
That's great. It's funny. I'll tell a personal story for which my daughter would probably kill me, but I remember her applying a few years ago to her first, what I'll call real summer job, in university. So between, a couple of her years of study, and it was an office job. And prior to that, she had worked in a coffee shop in high school. And I remember her saying to me, "But Mom, I can't apply to this. I don't have the skills that they're looking for." And it was a customer service role, on the phone, answering customer calls. And I explained to her exactly why she actually did have the skills that were needed in that kind of role after working in a coffee shop all through high school and dealing with customers, in that capacity. You just have to figure out how to, like I said earlier, translate the skills and experience that you do have into, something that the employer is looking for in the role that you're applying to, right? So thanks for sharing that, Rachel. I think I saw a couple more questions come in. I am a public relations professional, and I'm curious if you have opportunities to work on marketing and PR side of things in cybersecurity. So I can tell you that, yes, we absolutely do. We have a whole IBM security. We have our own marketing team. They designed this logo that's behind me here. And they design all of our marketing materials, not just for our IBM security brand, but for our products. And then from a public relations side of things, we've got communications folks who, are our focals in the cybersecurity space, our go-to people on our communications team. So yes, absolutely. We have opportunities in marketing and communications, in human resources, on our legal counsel, you name it. So definitely lots of opportunity to apply other skills, but relate them to the cybersecurity space. Diana, Emily, Rachel, anything to add based on experiences you've had, people you've met?
Just kind of what I said earlier in the morning session, where there's definitely a gradient of things and skills that are needed. You can't, I don't know about anybody else, but you can't build something and just have people use it right? You got to get that word out there. So PR and marketing is extremely important. And even things you don't think of on a regular basis as being involved in cybersecurity, right? Like, I know in our Fredericton office, we have a heavy lab. So our office is very secure. And one of the things that we absolutely need is somebody sitting at our front desk to issue badges and escort guests places and things like that, just to keep the physical security of the office in check, right? And, you know, everybody's like, oh, I'm just a receptionist, and you're so much more than that. So
Thanks, Emily. Diana, I saw a question here that is a good one for you. Do you have any advice to our audience as to how they might enhance their resumes? They use the term virtual resume, but I mean, a resume is a resume, right? So do you have any resume advice?
Yeah, so I mean, now it should be all virtual resumes since we won't be available anywhere for you to hand us a physical resume.
Yeah.
But I will say that there isn't one secret formula or recipe that we're looking for that's gonna, you know, automatically push you through to potential next steps. But another myth to debunk here is that there is no program of some sort of magical AI program that filters based on, you know, key highlight words. So if the job description said Java, we're not putting your resume through this magical program that picks out those words. And I've even heard some people put these keywords that they don't necessarily have themselves, but in white font at the bottom of the resume so that the computer can pick it up. So I will assure you that it's the recruiter's eyes that will actually read through every single resumes. So if you actually put it in white font, we won't be able to see that. And again, if you have to put it in white font because you don't have those skills, you shouldn't be applying for that particular position. And when we are looking for your resume as a student, the biggest tip that we have for you is tell us what school you're in at the very top, and when you are going to be graduating, so that we have an idea, did this person already graduate and are they looking for a full-time position, or are they still in school looking for an internship? So that we know if you would be aligned to the job that you've applied for. And after that, even experience like Rachel had at Tim Hortons, make sure you add that on your resume because that's who you are, and there's transferable skills. Like also what Heather mentioned with her daughter is she worked with customers through her experience at the coffee shop. And if you're potentially applying for a customer facing role or a client facing role, that's really great transferable skills to have on your resume, and that's who you are, and that's your story, and that's what makes you unique. And so I've heard students say, oh, I didn't put that there because I thought it was irrelevant. And it's like, what? That's an amazing opportunity that you had. And that's what's going to make you stand out versus another person, because we're all very different and we all come from multiple different walks of life. So if you're trying to put yourself into a box template resume, that's not what's going to make you stand out. What's going to make you stand out is who you are, your authentic selves. And so tell us about everything, all those hackathons, extracurricular activities, school clubs, all that good stuff that you've done. Tell us about that so that we can see those skills that you have developed. And when you go on our careers page, there are tips and tricks that we offer for students and early professionals. For example, highlighting or quantifying your results on what you've done. These are very, very important. So if you do follow those guidelines that we lay out for you, I hope that you have this also the right skill sets, then you should be able to move past into the next steps.
Thank you. I see a question here about mature students. Are we seeing any interest from mature students? So Diana, you may want to add to this, but I'll just start by saying that there are 3 million open and unfilled cybersecurity jobs around the world. And so we are looking for people of all ages. So whether you're still a student looking for an internship or a co-op, you're an early professional, or a mature student who's gone back to school, you're a career changer. By the way, we have another panel at the top of the hour for career changers. It doesn't matter. all people of all ages are welcome in this industry if you have the skills and the passion. And, you know, it reminds me of a little story that I'll share. I met a woman a year or two ago at a conference, back when we could go to conferences face to face. And she had been a teacher for 30 years, had retired from that, and now was making a career change into cybersecurity. So this was going to be her second career, because she said to me, the women in my family live into their 90s. So I figure I can work for another 30 years. So yeah, it's we meet all sorts of people in this industry, because it's such, like I think I said earlier, if you have a passion for making the world a safer place, then this is, you know, cybersecurity is a great place to find a role.
And just to add on to that, Heather, like you and I had a conversation previously. People that are older in this industry can 100% help people that are younger, and people that have been in this industry can help people that are older coming in as well. My mentor from IBM, we got talking one day, and I said something about it being my birthday, and he's like, "Oh, happy birthday, you know, what's your age?" And I said, "I'm 30," and he just kind of froze. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I've been working at IBM longer than you've been alive." So there's definitely opportunity regardless of your age at IBM.
Definitely. All right, I'm looking here to see if we have any more. I'm not seeing any more questions from the audience at the moment. Let's check our handy dandy list of questions that we thought up earlier that our audience might be interested in. Here's one. Diana, why do you think IBM believes so strongly in hiring and retaining a diverse workforce, seeing as it is Women's History Month and Monday is International Women's Day? Let's talk about more women in cybersecurity in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say that if you've come across different articles on diversity and inclusion, research has shown time over time that diverse teams create better innovations and also business decisions. And we've seen that firsthand at IBM, and that's why it is so important for us. And what we mean by a diverse team is that people come from all walks of lives and different backgrounds, and therefore they will bring different angles to solutioning problems. And so when you think about it that way, then we have more opportunities in our hand to consider when we are trying to problem solve. But if you bring a homogenous team, everyone has very similar backgrounds and similar walks of lives, then we're disservicing ourselves by just having probably a smaller amount of different approaches to the problems that we're trying to solve. And that's why we continue to push at IBM that there has to be diversity and inclusion at the forefront of any type of decision that we make. And if some of you were able to tune in yesterday to the 10 a.m. session, I did a quick history lesson. It dated all the way back to 1899 when we hired our first female and Black IBMer. So we're not talking, you know, over the past couple years or even 10 years, but this is a very long time, more than 100+ years. We've been practicing this, and that's why we strongly believe that in order for us to move forward as a community and also a company, we need to have a diverse team.
Thanks, Diana. And as you know, I said, let's focus on gender diversity, because given that it is Women's History Month, but as you alluded to, diversity is so much more than gender, race, or the color of your skin. It includes things like your educational background. Imagine if, you know, we talked about or asked the question, do you need a computer science degree to work in cybersecurity? And the answer is no. Imagine if we hired everybody with the same degree, and moreover, from the same top 3 schools. We'd have a workforce that all was trained to think the same way, to approach problems the same way, and we would not come up with those creative solutions that Diana just talked about. All right, I think We are at the end of our time together today, and I want to end by asking each of you, what makes you proud to be a woman in cybersecurity or a woman in tech? So I'll start with Emily.
Darn, I was hoping you were going to start with Rachel, because as we answered this morning, our answers are very similar. It's the cohesion. It's all of the team, all of that diversity against malware and threats to security. And there's no competition. Well, there is, but not in the way that are in some other industries. It's just that camaraderie that I enjoy so much.
Thanks, Emily. Rachel?
Not only that, but also it's nice to see other women in the workforce who you can use as role models. Like the previous CEO of IBM was a woman, and that's sort of like a great role model to look up to, right? So just having something to work towards as a woman is nice.
And Diana?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not specifically in cybersecurity, but being in talent, I'm just trying to move the dial as much as I can so that there is more equality between female and male hires. And I think that starts with the young talent that we are speaking to today, is especially if you are younger than university age and you're thinking, what should I do for my career, or potentially picking post-secondary education, and STEM being at the forefront right now with what's really most innovative and trying to change in the community. That's something for you to think about. And that's what I hope I can accomplish, is to bring more female talent into the STEM field. Even if you're not in a STEM program, that's okay. But working in a STEM related industry like myself, HR in a technology company.
Thanks, Diana. And we appreciate everything that you are doing on that front. And thank you for joining us today and yesterday. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. And if you did type a question in that we did not get to, or I overlooked somehow, please, I encourage you to go visit our IBM group on cyberexchange.ca. Pose your questions there, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Diana. Have a good evening.